Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Saturday Super Teacher Training. Today, we'll be having a Super Teacher refresher on training for classroom excellence. My name is Mahesh. I'm from Mumbai, and I take care of implementation team. And together with me is Aparajita, who will co-facilitate the session with me today. Hi, Aparajita.
Hi, Mahesh. Good
Great.
morning, everyone. Yeah. So I'm Aparajita from the academic team of Super Teacher. Very happy to connect with you today. Over to you, Mahesh.
Great. Thank you, Aparajita. So, quick check before we begin. Can you all show me a thumbs up if you were able to take the pretest already? Yeah, how to take the pretest? You open your Super Teacher app, go to Exceed Academy, click on the session today, and take the pretest. Yeah, click on the thumbs up if you've already taken the pretest. I can see some thumbs up. Very nice. A lot of people have already taken the pretest. In case you have not, please do it so right away. Wonderful. I can see a lot many thumbs up there. So let's me move ahead. Let me share the agenda of the day today. Sorry, just give me one more second. Here we go. I hope my screen is visible. Ajita, can you please confirm?
Yes, it is visible.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So here's the agenda for today. Firstly, we are going to see the Exceed magic and how to manage the classroom well. After that, we are going to learn how can we prepare effectively using the Super Teacher lesson plan. And post that, we are going to understand how can we use the book pack effectively in our classrooms. So that's the agenda for the day. Let's begin the session one, which is the Exceed method magic and how to manage the class well. Yeah. Before we continue, let's have a quick check. This time maybe via chat box. Please type yes in the chat box if you already have the Super Teacher app installed on your mobile phone already. Yeah. In case you haven't, you would need to install the app from the Google Play Store or the App Store, and you will have to ask your school for the school code. But in case you have already installed, please type yes in the chat box. Wonderful. I can see a lot of participants who already have the Super Teacher installed on their phones. Wonderful. Okay. Wonderful. Great. So a lot of you already have the Super Teacher app installed on your phone. Let me share the aim of this first session. Yeah. In this first session, we're first going to understand and experience the Exceed method in action. Yeah. We will understand different steps involved in the Exceed method. Post that, we are going to compare Exceed method teaching versus the traditional teaching. We will also see how can we manage the class well at each step of the Exceed method. Post that, we will have a small Q&A section where we can clarify some of the doubts you may have. Yeah. Before we start, yeah, I want you to type in the chat box, while running a class, what is one thing that means to you? When you run a classroom, what is one thing that means to you a lot? Let's type it in the chat box. Learning, inclusiveness, clear concept, Khadija ma'am says, managing the classroom really well. Learning, but also fun along, preparation, having ensuring that every child is attending. 5 A's, amazing. understanding the concepts by learners. I am really happy to see that a lot of you are focusing so much on the planning bit. A lot of you also spoke about the 5 steps which are critical. Ensuring every child is involved. 5A methods and skills. Thank you so much for sharing these responses. Great. So with this, what I will do is ask Aprajita to lead the session. Aprajita, over to you, please.
Thank you so much, Mahesh. It was very interesting to see all your responses, and I'm going to take it from there. Uh, I saw that many of you have mentioned what running a class means is experiential learning, inclusiveness, which I personally liked a lot, interactive nature of the class, active learning, student participation, concept clarity, learning by doing. I think these are all the elements that make a non-traditional class. And with that, we are going to start with a small, interesting activity. And let me first share my screen. Mahesh, if you could just give me the sharing rights.
Yes, Aprajita, you can share.
Yeah, 1 second. Yeah, I'm just sharing. Okay, share sound. All right, I hope my screen is visible now.
Just maybe, yeah, now it is visible, Aprajita.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. So all of us, we are going to do a small activity, okay? I would want you to give yourself about 2 minutes, grab some books. You can see some 2, 3 books, 4 books, and some A4 sheets paper. What you have to do first, listen to the instruction, please. You have to place the books the way you see on the screen on both sides. You can put 2, 3 books on each side, and you can first put 1 A4 sheet paper or 2 A4 sheets paper. And then on the paper, you put either a coin or a paper clip, something which, the paper can hold. And why am I saying all this to you? Because we have an objective today. Your aim or your goal is to discover by experience what makes a strong bridge. So give yourself 2 minutes. First, let's grab all the books, the A4 sheet paper. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can collect all the material, all the resources? Yeah, Sonam ma'am, you raised a hand. If you can put your query on chat, it'll be easy for us to. Deepika ma'am, you all raised a hand, but I would appreciate if you could put your question on the chat for me to respond to your query. Okay, books. All right, I'm getting a lot of thumbs up. So we need a few books. It could be 2 books, definitely not 1. So you put 2 to 3 books on either side. Yeah, whoever has done this, you don't have to do it again, but you don't share the answer also right now because there would be a lot of first timers who would be doing this exercise. Satishwari ma'am, I think it will be better you don't share the answers right now. We would like others to take the experience. So just bring the paper, put them on the books, make a bridge, and keep putting some coins in a way that the bridge can hold. Okay. Yeah, so are you ready? Just share 2, 3 thumbs up and I will know that most of you are ready. A few books, few sheets of paper. In case you don't have A4 sheet, you can also grab a page from your diary or a sheet of newspaper, make it a thin sheet. All right. Okay, let's get started. You have 5 minutes for this. Try and make a bridge, yeah, a strong bridge that can hold some coins or paper clip. Okay, get started with the activity. And after 5 minutes is 10 minutes past 10. By 10:15, I will again connect with you. Try and make a bridge. That's our aim. That's our goal. And you have the resources, some books, 2-3 piles to make 2 pillars, the A4 sheet, which forms the base of the bridge, and imagine the coins and the paper clip people or vehicles that are on the bridge. How do you make a strong bridge that will not collapse with the coins or with the paper clips or anything that you put on it? Yeah, all those of you who have raised your hands, you may be having a query. I would appreciate it if you could put it on chat. Then we will be able to respond to your queries. When you are done, just share a thumbs up. Whichever strategy works for you, you try 2-3 different strategies. Your goal is to make a strong bridge, a bridge that can hold either coins or paper clips, something of similar weight. Okay? When you are done, you just type done on chat. Then I would know that you are done. Okay, Harshita ma'am has done. So, all right, I'm going to wait for a few more before we move to the next segment. A strong bridge, that's your goal, which can hold coins or paper clips. Okay, so I'll wait for 1 more minute. I think all of you have done earlier than expected. So I'm going to give another minute. And then we will move ahead. We want more participation. That's why I'm waiting for a few more of you to confirm that it's done. I am told I should speak a little louder. Mahesh, am I audible? Or I will try and speak a little louder. Maybe,
Yeah.
ma'am, your microphone needs...
Yes, I think Aparajita, you are audible.
Okay. So just those of you who may not be able to hear me clearly, you may want to increase your microphone, or sometimes if you have a headphone, earphone, that kind of impacts clear hearing. Okay, so I think I'm getting a lot of done now. So we are going to move ahead, okay? And I would like to share one more thing. In case some of you want to talk, in the next segment, I would want to hear from you. I'll share my questions and you can type on chat. But if anybody wants to speak and share their thoughts, just raise your hand and we will unmute you. Okay? So if anybody wants to speak and share their answers, you can raise your hand. We will unmute you so that you can speak. Okay, here goes the next segment. One second. Okay, we have a few questions for you here. You have a few questions on screen. My question to you is, how did you know which structure would be more stable and strong? Because right now you've done an activity. We are now reflecting on what you did through a few question and answers. Please type on chat. So how do you type? You can put 1 and you share your answers. You can see the number of the questions, the question numbers. So put the question number and share your answers. So my first question is, how did you know which structure would be more stable and strong? You can type on chat. And anybody, okay, I've already got trial and error method. All right. Knowledge, experience, and by trying. Okay, so I'm getting a lot of responses which says by testing with the coin, by trial and error. I've got another interesting response which is by maintaining symmetry. Okay, I would like to know more about the symmetry bit. Maybe if you want to speak about it, ma'am, you can raise your hand and we'll unmute you. Maintaining symmetry, how did it help? Okay, by previous knowledge, trial and error. So I'm getting a lot of responses on by trial and error, by putting different weights. We should make the bridge stronger. All right. Learning through error is what I'm getting a lot. Okay, nice. You are trying to figure it out by not getting it right the first time. Okay, anybody who wants to share the answer? Okay, Khadija ma'am, would you want to speak? Yeah, would you want to share your thoughts? We would like to, okay, I'm getting, Khadija ma'am, if you want to speak, we will unmute you and you may want to share your thoughts as well. Meanwhile, others can share your answers to question 2, question 3, and question 4. Just type the number and share your thoughts.
So, Khadija, ma'am, whenever you are ready, you can unmute yourself and speak.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we will take, okay, lots of messages are coming. Wonderful. I can see for question 4, how is this learning experience different from a regular class? Let me read some of the responses. Learning through thinking and doing is what Mahalakshmi ma'am is saying. For question 3, Khadija ma'am is saying she's not being able to access her microphone. Okay, in case you have a query or you have a thought, then please type it on chat. Most of you are saying, how is this learning experience different from a regular class? I'm getting a lot of responses which says learning by doing. And for what skills did you apply? Okay, I'm getting a lot of response like critical thinking, analytical and logical skills, problem solving skill. Okay, so I would like to know a little more. What about critical thinking? What kind of critical thinking did you do to get the activity right? I would like to know a little more on the skills. What kind of critical thinking skill? Did you have to do some reasoning? Did you have to compare? Okay, somebody can't see me. My screen is visible. Maybe there is a problem, ma'am, with your system. I hope others can see my screen. Critical thinking by measuring. Okay, problem solving. All right. And now I'm going to ask one question where I'm not got any answer, but I'd like to know, what did you learn about building bridges that you did not know before? Oh, I've already got one answer. The role of different material in bridge construction is very important. Oh, wonderful. I'm looking for more answers. Okay, we learned how to balance the weight. Okay, this is where you're getting the conceptual clarity. Please note question number 2. Question number 2 is where you're building your conceptual clarity. What did you learn about building bridges? The answers were, we learned how to balance the weight. We learned about the role of different material, that the kind of material you use can be an important factor for how strong the bridge is. One more, I want one more point. Something more. Balancing, yes. What is one conceptual clarity that we all got after doing this activity? What did you learn about building bridges that you did not know before? I've got making the base strong, balancing. I've got a response like role of different material. Okay, something else? Okay, Tamanna ma'am wants to speak. I think Tamanna ma'am would like to speak. We could unmute her. She's saying, ma'am, please unmute. Okay. So we'll unmute and you can share your thoughts. Importance of foundation of the bridge is important. Okay. Both pillars should be on the same plane. Very interesting. These are all where we all are getting conceptual clarity. Okay. Height of bridge and materials used the okay, there's another which says even a paper can balance when it has strong pillars. Okay, I'll share one more answer. Okay, Tamanna ma'am, would you want to speak? Can we unmute Tamanna ma'am? She probably wants to share. Anybody else wants to talk?
Tamanna ma'am, you are
Yeah, you can unmute. You are,
unmute yourself. And
yeah. Tamanna ma'am, please unmute and share your thoughts. Oh, she's not being able to unmute is the response I'm getting. Okay. All right. So I'm going to read one or two more answers. Balancing, resistance, learn without. Okay. So it's all about how you distribute the weight. It's about balance. It's about putting the pillars at the same level and the material that is needed, which really impacts. And also how you design the bridge where the weight is evenly distributed. Okay, so now thank you so much for your interesting responses. Please note this is a highly interactive session. That's why we also encourage you to talk to us and where we can unmute and we'd like to hear you too. But please continue with your messages. Tamanna ma'am, maybe you would want to try again and unmute. Meanwhile, I'll talk about the skills. I'm getting a lot of response is designing and constructing, wonderful skill. Problem solving, definitely. Then the skill, of course, different kinds of thinking which went to it. All right. So with this, I think Tamanna ma'am still has some problem with the system. So let me move on. But please keep your answers coming. Yeah. Okay, now we are going to this. Okay, this is where you see what the actual bridge structure should look like to evenly balance the weight. Yeah, where you fold the paper and the way you fold the paper, it's able to take the weight. So this is how actually bridges are constructed in real life, where you design it in a way in this kind of a triangular shape where it's able to take the weight or the load. All right. Now let's come to our exceed method. Okay. So what does this exceed method entail? It has 5 key steps. The first step is where we share the learning outcome of the topic. Remember, I shared the goal. The aim was you have to find out what makes a strong bridge. So first and foremost, in an exceed method class, we share the aim so that the learners and the teachers would both know what they are trying to achieve at the end of the class. Then we come to an interesting, engaging activity, which we call action. Now, it's not just about fun. There is a lot of conceptual understanding that is embedded in the activity. As you saw for yourself, this bridge making itself had a lot of conceptual concepts that were actually embedded in it. Once you do the activity, you actually get a lot of conceptual insight. So similarly, in our Exceed method class, students are also engaged in an experiential learning activity, which will help them achieve the aim. And the activity is such that we are not expected to tell them anything. They just read the instructions, they get the instructions, they find out for themselves. Trial and error that most of you talked about. Then is the next step, which I think is a very important step, which is what we just experienced now, a question answer. Question answer where we reflect on the activity. some questions that would be in your mind, but as students, you may not be able to ask. So here is the role of the teacher to ask these questions, to draw out the experience that children had during the activity, which we call analysis. Now, this is where the conceptual understanding is built. So this is a very, very important step. And this step actually connects the activity with the application. If you miss the analysis, then children will just do the activity and then immediately they'll jump to the worksheet or the application, and there won't be much of conceptual understanding. This is where we clear doubts, we talk, let students share their responses. So analysis is an important step in the Exceed method classroom. Then we come to the fourth step, which is called application. What does it mean? That if you want to try again. So you get another context where you practice, you try again to see if you actually met the aim or not. And then when you try again, that's for the assessor to assess and see if you have achieved the aim or not. Activity is not about achieving the aim. Please note, there is a difference between activity and assessment. Activity, as most of you said, interestingly, was a trial and error. You figure out things, you experiment, you handle the resources, you use your mind, you push yourself, you're curious, you try and make something. It could be hands-on, it could be something to do with the mind. So, and then is analysis with these questions that you answered. What did you learn about bridges that you didn't know before? What skills did you apply? These are important analysis questions which makes your conceptual understanding that you gained through the activity stronger. Now you give me another context. Now, if I give you another worksheet and I ask you, I show you a label diagram of a bridge and I ask you, okay, what does this structure do? How do you think this will help balance the weight? You will be able to answer, because not just because you did the activity, but we did a question answer where all of you shared your answers and we learned from that. And then that is where a teacher will be able to assess whether you've achieved the aim or not. Okay. Now moving on to the next phase, we are going to watch a video, and this is going to be an interesting classroom experience. It's from an Exceed class, a super teacher class. I would want you to watch the video very carefully, see what the teacher is doing and the students are doing. Note every bit, including what is being asked, what are the students, every step, how are they responding, everything. Just keep it clean. What teacher is doing, what students are doing, just observe that. With this, I'm going to play the video and I would ask Mahesh to confirm if my video is audible or not.
Who's reading the aim for us?
Are going to listen to text about space and find the facts and opinions in it.
We need to watch this video.
Space junk does not consist only of small pieces of debris. There are chunks of old space stations.
In my opinion, space junk problem can be solved.
You read these statements and let me know, is it fact or is it an opinion? When you can identify this is fact.
Text is a statement that is related to or means no knowing, while opinions are statements which it's only on a person's thoughts.
About space junk.
I learned how to differentiate from a fact or an opinion. We can identify facts by we can prove them, but for opinions, they're just ideas.
Okay, so I'm going to pause And I would like to hear from you. What are some of the things you noticed in the video? What children are doing and what teacher was doing? Something interesting, unique, please share it on chat. And again, if you would want to talk about it, it's a standard thing. You can just raise your hand and we'll unmute. Hopefully you'll be able to. Jyoti ma'am, you want to speak? Okay, can we unmute Jyoti ma'am, Jyoti S ma'am? Okay, let me read your responses meantime. Making children to read the aim. All right, teacher. Okay, this is going quite fast. Let me read this. A teacher asks students to read the aim. Letting children do and learn. All right. They are analyzing and thinking. They're reading the aim. Active participation. Summary done by students. Children were very clear when they spoke. The lesson focused on 5A. Okay, but you can specify what did you notice about children, like and what did you see about the teacher doing? Reading the aim frequently, asking questions, students' active participation. Teacher gave chance to students to read the aim. Oh, this is nice. It's the students who are speaking the most. All right. Ananya ma'am has shared this. Hemalata ma'am is saying children are allowed to think. All right. Srilata ma'am is saying the session is more student centric. The students are in a group performing the task. There are 40 messages which have come. And as always, I'm not being able to keep up with the pace, but I'll try my best to read. Teacher is a catalyst. Interesting word. Students actively participated in the class. Teacher is an important medium, which is the meaning of catalyst, and which is helping students participate in the class. So the role of the teacher is important, very important, because the teacher is holding the steering wheel. Interaction between teacher and student, interactive class, letting children talk, clear instructions were given, active participation. Most of the time students were talking regarding the concept more than the teacher. Children are attentive, worksheet completed with class lesson. No, that's a good observation. Giving them enough time to think and respond. Reading the aim and answer for question. Participation of all. 50-50 class. Okay, I'd like to know from Hemalata ma'am what you mean by 50-50 class. Nishu ma'am is saying children are doing worksheet on their own and they are helping each other, all right? Then enough time was given to think and speak. Open-ended questions, fantastic. I'm so tempted to read all your answers, which definitely we will. But I'm just, given the interest of time, I'm able to read only some of your responses, the quickest I can. But thank you again so much for sharing your views, because these responses really, really help us. Okay, I'll again read some more involvement of students than teacher. Children improved their thinking skill, active participation, instructions were clear, immediate monitoring of the worksheet. We would like to know how you found that out. Effective use of the Super Teacher app. Yes, it was being projected on the screen. Teacher talks less and students talk more. Brainstorming was there. Children are reading on their own. Peer learning. Fantastic. All right. So now we move on to the next slide. Okay. Okay. Now we are going to look at a traditional class, try and understand how a traditional class is different from an Exceed method class. So all that you saw on the video, everything that you shared comprises the Exceed method class. And anything else is a traditional class. That was not done in the Exceed method would be part of a traditional class. So now you can read it yourself and I'll just highlight a few pointers here. So somebody mentioned that it was a 50-50 class. So what does 50-50 mean? That's the main, what do I call, the key of an Exceed method class. It's 50-50 participation, 50% teacher, 50% student. And how do you achieve this 50-50 ratio? The teacher is the co-star with the student. Teachers and students know what they are studying. So a clear aim is very necessary. So in Exceed method class, as you saw with your own activity, we set the goal, we set the aim very, very clearly. In the beginning, this was done in the video too. Then there is active learning. All of you mentioned students are learning by doing. They have to do something on their own. Sometimes it may not be with hands-on resources for a subject like English, sometimes social science. They are very minds-on subject, where we give you a problem in the textbook, in the work, something where you have to read, you have to figure out. So this is a minds-on activity. But again, it's actually where children have to really think hard, use the trial and error as well to do the activity. So and through this, there is active learning. So I'll mention this in this context of the activities that we do. Now, a very, very well-known teacher from Harvard School of Education, Professor Eleanor Duckworth, she's a stalwart on experiential learning. And she had said that, give children a problem to solve in the class. And when children become extremely curious, extremely focused to find the answer, to solve the problem, the curiosity reaches a peak, and cognitively, this becomes the best time for them to grasp the concept. If you're very active, your mind is like alert, you've become very curious, you're doing what you said, trial and error, your mind is absorbed, and this is where your conceptual understanding later becomes very, very strong. So this is the philosophy by which we design our activities, where children actually do something with their mind or with their hands, with using resources, but they're pushed to think a lot, and that builds their conceptual understanding. Where does it come? Through meaningful dialogue. Students share and make connections, teachers ask and keep them talking. You've seen the analysis questions. That's very important. And that's where a part of the 50-50 actually comes to play. A teacher is important, must know the right questions to ask and facilitate and get the responses from the student, because that's where children will listen to one another. Teacher will correct their mistakes by not telling the answer right away, but allowing them to speak. And that's where a meaningful dialogue takes place. These are all part of the Exceed method class. Then some of you mentioned, and very interestingly, the children did the worksheet in the class in the lesson itself. Exactly. Children must write on their own. They apply concepts and write in their own words. We have the worksheet there. And this is also part of the Exceed method. So it takes care of children speaking, children collaborating, children trying to write on their own, and children communicating as well. And most importantly, they are also allowed to think critically. Whether it's an analysis question, whether it's an activity where the teacher has given the instruction, every time they have to think. You've seen that yourself when you did the bridge making activity. Many of you said that we used critical thinking skills. So this is what children do exactly in the same way when they do an activity, whether with resources or not with resources, but with the book or something to write or draw. This is where they have to apply their critical thinking. And finally, in the Exceed method class, teacher observes student learning at every step. Many of you responded that teacher is actually quickly checking their understanding. So these are all part of the Exceed method class. And if you follow this, you will achieve the 50-50 classroom. I know some of you mentioned on chat 50-50 class, Nishi ma'am, I suppose. Many of you mentioned. So this is what comprises of 50-50. Divide it equally. And if you follow this, you achieve a really good, robust experiential learning classroom, not just for the experiential activity, but for the conceptual understanding that children will gain through this classroom. Now let's look at a traditional approach. I was a student. When I was a student, I was taught in a traditional method. And this is exactly how I was taught. So as I'm reading it, I'm remembering my own class, where the goal was covering the syllabus. My teacher, no matter how good my teacher would speak, definitely did all the talking. Teacher and students are aware of the chapter being taught. We knew that today we are going to learn about this particular chapter. The focus was coming to the class, opening the textbook, and I'm not disregarding any teacher. They did an excellent job, which is why I'm here. But I think it just doesn't allow children to build their thinking skills. So, and today is the time where we have to focus on building the 21st century skills. NEP NCF 2023, and along with many international academic standards, really focusing on children building critical thinking and creative thinking skills, which is why the 50-50 classroom that can be conducted through the Exceed method is what will work 100%. Now, what happens again in the traditional class? The chapter is read, explained by the teacher, and usually the questions are based on the text. So there's not much to think about. When I had to answer questions, I had to learn the answers from all my exams. I did a good job, but honestly, I learned more of critical thinking when I actually became an adult after passing out from school. So yeah, all questions are usually fact-based. Children write answers often copied from the blackboard, and teacher reviews and marks the student work. There's not much of observation. There's not much of assessing the student learning at every step. So we move on next. And in case you have any questions, feel free to type on chat. I have a new computer and it's acting smart. I'm taking time to even scroll my slides. Okay, now let's look at some classroom management tips, some best practices. Now, we just watched experience practices essential to teach in a super teacher lesson. And now we'll find out some of the best practices. You can already see first one on screen. A clear aim is the best way to begin any class. So I'm focusing on the tips when we start with the aim. Many of you watched the video and shared that the teacher was asking students to read the aim. So let's see what you can do, some tips when you start the class with the aim. So here are some things you can do to ensure that all students are clear about the aim. Write and decode the aim on the board is one thing you can do. You can also underline, read, or invite students to read the aim. You can underline it on the board. You can ask students to read. Then have students write the aim in their notebooks. It is like an evidence. They know that today we learned this. A notebook shouldn't just be only about doing homework or classwork. This also is a record for the student to know that this is what was being taught today. And you can see your own questions and answers later to see if you've achieved the aim or not. That's a good practice. And okay, let me go back. One thing you should avoid is explaining the topic in detail at the first minute. Yeah, so we'll do some do's and don'ts along with these tips. Next, what kind of, how can we make the action stage better? Here are some tips. First, you can pre-plan group or pair work, including the seating. So we strongly recommend cooperative or peer learning in groups and pairs. And there is a reason why cooperative learning is encouraged. Children learn from one another. It's not just that when you have mixed groups, there will be children who are usually shy to speak in the class. So you put them with their peers and maybe give them a role. Like today, you are going to be presenting or you are going to be facilitating in the group. Pick a shy student. And that will also improve their personality. They'll become much more confident. So it's good to have a pre-planned group in your class. Rupali ma'am, in case you have any point, I'll take your responses. I can see you've raised your hand. Then it's not just the resources that you need to plan for. but also the seating and the groups and the pairs to have maximum understanding and participation. You can rotate the children, make groups of 4. It's very easy. Then for every Exceed method class, make sure you give clear step-by-step instructions. Our lesson plans in the activity phase has very clear step-by-step instructions. Please give those instructions. And even better, if you can allow and ask 1 or 2 students to repeat the instructions. So this way you will know which part of the instruction needed little more. Okay.
Rupali ma'am wanted to speak, so I think
Rupali ma'am wants to
she's
speak?
unmuted.
Okay. Rupali ma'am, you want to speak? We've unmuted you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
I think the hand raise was by mistake,
Okay,
Rupali ma'am.
okay,
So
all right.
Prajita, maybe we can continue.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, fine. All right, so move around the class, supervise the action instructions and prompt on time, and then set a clear time limit also. And one thing you should also do for this activity is move around the classroom and supervise, support students when needed. One thing you should avoid is showing or telling the students the exact outcome of the activity. So if you know it or you might know it, just tell them, as we said, let them try it. Use the trial and error method that many of you have used during the bridge making activity. Okay. On. Okay. Now we have some tips on what you can do better during the analysis segment. So analysis where we reflect on the activity, and there are some, broadly, there are 3 questions in our Exceed method class. We start with the activity discussion, short form AD. Then there is a generalized discussion, which is more related to the concept. Short form is GD. And finally, we get into the higher order thinking question, which is the HOTS question. So these are the 3 analysis questions that you will find in every Exceed Super Teacher lesson plan. Make sure that you read out the AD, GD questions clearly and slowly repeat, translate, and explain the meaning of the words. And here there will be some interesting method. I'm going to talk about a sandwich approach. So what does it mean is, sandwich, you know, there are 2 slices of bread and we put some stuffing inside. So this is a model you can use even in your analysis. So the first top slice, so let's look at the bottom slice, is when you ask the question, the AD question or the GD question. That's 1 slice of the bread. The stuffing which comes in between is the thinking time. Children need some time to think. So give them some time to think. And finally, let children speak, which is equivalent to the top slice of the sandwich. So use the sandwich model when you run the analysis section. Ask the question, give students some thinking time, and then help them, get them to answer. So don't correct them in between. Listen to all the students. They may be right, they may be wrong. It's perfectly fine. Your role as a teacher is when you summarize the learning. We have it in our lesson plan. We always allow children to first share their answers. And then as a teacher, you can come up with your conceptual explanation. Give the wait time. Then you listen to as many students as possible. You can invite students using different techniques to answer the question. I think all of you would know the cold call, the popsicle sticks with names, or maybe just alphabetical order, so that only a few students don't get a chance to speak. Everybody gets a chance to talk. Use board work to support explanations. You can draw, you can see the sample on the screen. We have an example of a board work where you can collate the responses of analysis, and you can use that to support your explanation. And then what you see on the screen is our analysis, the core picture where we show the conceptual understanding in the form of a graphic organizer. Show that after students have shared their answers. And do try to listen to as many students as possible. Also, try and ask follow-up questions. For example, if students have answered something, you can ask them, like, give an example. How did you figure that out? Or where have you seen this before? Or what do you think this actually means? You can ask them follow-up questions because that also builds their critical thinking skill. But very important, give them some time to think. And what you avoid is answering your own questions to break the silence or giving a lot of extra or advanced examples. Better to avoid those. Now we come to some classroom management tips during the application phase. Application is when children do the worksheet. You've seen it on the video. So what are some of the things you can help children during application? You can ask, read the question yourself or ask the students to read them. Make sure they understand what they need to do. And then let students do the worksheet independently, not by the teacher or the parents. So ideally, worksheet is a classwork, and make them do it in the class independently. Sometimes you can also put them in pairs, make them do it in with their peers. That's also fine. And support students where required using the differentiation tips. In our Exceed Super Teacher lessons, we have differentiation tips for those who need help. I think that is what is more important and useful. You can open that, and that's for students who are really struggling to do the question. So use that tip. You can also give your own tip. Our differentiation tip actually gives you some idea. So you can improvise on that and support the students without giving them the answer. You can scaffold, you can break the question into parts and continue. And then there is an extra challenge question, which we give to students who have already finished the worksheet. The smart ones are sitting idle. You can give the extra challenge for them to answer. What you should avoid is doing the worksheets together as a class or writing answers on the board. Finally, some classroom management tips for assessment. We have the approaching, meeting, and exceeding rubric. That's what comprises the assessment. So what do you do in assessment? I think some of you mentioned after watching the video that the teacher was really towards the end, the teacher got a lot of insight from how much students have learned. So this is that phase. So what you do during assessment is teacher checks to see if students have achieved the aim. So how do you do this? You can do this by asking them, what did you learn today? You saw what the teacher did in the video. You can do so by inviting students to share learnings, and then you summarize to consolidate the learning. And you can also notice who shares and what they say, then use the approaching, meeting, and exceeding rubric. Quickly, you can take a note that will help you. You can also collect the worksheets to check regularly and use the AME rubric to evaluate where the students are. And for A means approaching, M means meeting, who have achieved the aim. E are those who have answered the question number 3 in the worksheet. That question is on higher order thinking. Question 2 in the worksheet is on the meeting question or the aim, and question 1 in the worksheet is on the approaching, based on the approaching rubric. So if you look at the worksheet, how students have answered, that will also give you a very good insight on which student has achieved the aim and who might be at approaching or at an exceeding level. What you can also do is, you can also take photos of students' worksheet and use as evidence for assessment later. And one thing which we would like to share is that please don't focus so much on spelling and grammar and handwriting for math, science, social science. English, of course, you have to focus on grammar if the worksheet is on grammar. Now don't focus so much on handwriting or spellings. Okay. Now with this, I would like to invite all of you for the next segment on question and answer, and I would like to hand over to my colleague Mahesh. Mahesh, over to you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for the enriching session, Aparajita. You clearly covered what are different practices that a teacher should ideally use in the classroom to successfully do the five-step method class. So teachers, you can see a Q&A section at the bottom bar of your screen. Please do not use the chat box for asking questions. You can click on the Q&A, and we are looking forward to some of your questions related to following five steps and using practices in the classroom. Yeah, please do share questions that comes on top of your mind. So, Aparajita, one of the questions that I can see right now is, how can we make all the children write independently? Teacher struggles, some children write faster, some children write slower. So, how do you think we can help all the children write independently? You're on mute, Aparajita.
1 second. Yeah, I hope I'm audible now. So, a very important question. I'm going to share a few tips which might help you. And it won't work overnight, but I think it really works after they complete maybe 5, 7 blocks. You'll be able to see the difference. You can break each question into smaller parts. So, for example, if there is a question which says, what are the steps of, say, photosynthesis? Yeah, you can break that question into smaller parts. As first, you can say, do you know what photosynthesis is? Okay, what all works during photosynthesis? So, breaking it in small parts is one way to help those who can struggle, those who may struggle. Or you can also break a question by asking, what is the question asking you to do first? And then you can also help the student underline or circle important words. For example, is it asking you to describe? Is it asking you to compare? So what do you do when you compare? Do you compare one thing only with one thing? No, you compare with two things. So which are the two things you need to compare? So mainly break the question into small parts, help children underline or circle important words. And one other thing you can do also is use sentence starters. You can write them on the board. Just 3 words for the given answer. If you can just write sentence starters, that will give them an idea. And instead of giving the answers, you can just give a helpful clue like, can you remember what happened in the story? Go back to the story. Who all were the main characters? Find quickly, underline. So these are some of the things which might help them slowly get used to answering the questions independently, writing the questions. And if you feel that some children might have it in their head, but they are not able to write the word, and you almost know that, a word like photosynthesis might not be very easy for them to remember the spelling, you can write some of the keywords on the board. The keywords that will be necessary for that particular answer, you can just choose them randomly. You can put them on the board. That's not giving away the answer. That's for children to at least look at all the word. It's like a word cloud, and then they frame the connections, they sequence it, they write it in their own. So you can help by either giving them the sentence starters, writing some keywords that is needed in the answer on the board, breaking each question into smaller parts, and helping children maybe underline important words in the question. Anything that you may want to add also, Mahesh?
I think you very well shared that, Aprajita. I think there are some questions, there are many questions flowing in. So I'm just trying to categorize into a few buckets. There are some questions around how do we take care of slow learners, not only during the worksheet, but throughout the class. So maybe I'll add my points, Aprajita. And then
Yes.
maybe you can also share,
Sure.
I think children are generally not slow. We can do a lot of strategies, and it's not at only one part of the 5 step that you can use these strategies. I think one thing that we can start by is changing the seating arrangement. The more closer these children are to you, the proximity is high, and their level of attention definitely increases, right? Children are also different kind of learners. Some are kinesthetic, some are visual, some are auditory. So have some visuals organized. Let children speak to each other. Exceed lesson plans are designed to ensure that all the different kinds of children are speaking. I would also recommend have visuals for keywords. Have your board work ready so children have something to refer to constantly during the class. And lastly, but most importantly, there are teacher tip given in the lesson plans itself that will help you ensure that all the children are engaged in several lesson plans.
Useful.
Would you like to share a couple of points, Aprajita, on how can learners be engaged in the
No, I
classroom?
mean, I think what you covered is are all the most essential parts.
Wonderful. Great. So some more questions are more around the time management, and some of the participants are saying that, we have a 30-minute period. Uh, Exceed would highly recommend that you have a minimum of 35-minute period, if possible, a 40-minute period. So my suggestion would be go back to your coordinator and check if we can increase the timeline to 30 minutes. But yeah, generally, if you have only 30 minutes and there is limitation, then I would suggest managing and planning the lesson plan in order to ensure that we are able to complete the lesson plans.
Mahesh, there's an interesting question here. It says, why should we not explain the concept before the discussion part? So, yeah. So maybe I'll just share two things
Yeah.
and then you can add. So, see, if you already explain the concept to children before the discussion, students don't really get a chance to explore, or there's no curiosity. Curiosity actually drives learning, starting with a question, a problem. And as I mentioned, that brains are wired in a way that the more curious we get, the more we can learn better. We can understand better, not learn, we'll say understand better. So if you explain things right away, before the actual discussion, students become just passive listeners instead of thinkers or problem solvers. And it kind of makes learning a little less meaningful. In contrast, when students try to figure things out first, even if they struggle, they engage more deeply with the content. It makes students discover a concept on their own, um, and they are more likely to remember it. So learning becomes more connected to experience, not just information. So that's why we want children to first share their thoughts and then you give the explanation. And that's why we suggest that let children talk first after the questions are asked, then give them the explanation.
Right.
Because the children is also curious to know whether the answer they give is correct or not. So they listen to you more attentively instead of you explaining things right away. Anything, yeah. That
Yeah,
was
I think, Prajita, thank you so much for sharing. When you were talking about this question, I was just reflecting back on the slide that you had shared about the traditional teaching versus the five-step method teaching. And definitely the five-step method encourages more participation. When it's mostly teacher-led, where teacher is explaining, obviously I won't say that all of them are not engaged. There are students who are engaged, but to ensure that different kind of learners are engaged, we definitely have to have a two-way classroom where children participate also instead of only listening. Great. There are many interesting questions. Let's take a few more of them.
So there was one, will it be okay if maximum kids are on meeting level? Yeah, I think that's fine, right? That's fine. What do
Yeah.
you think, Mahesh? If
Yeah.
most are.
I think, Yadi, we should always have a higher expectations.
Mm.
But yeah, if your children are meeting the meeting level, definitely it's a good thing. But I'm
Mm.
sure that as a teacher, you have higher expectations from your children. So do not lower the bar, keep the bar higher for them.
Yeah.
One of the questions that I can see is, in the action part, is it possible for us to do minor changes or strategies to make children understand the concept better? If I had to answer this question,
Yes.
Aprajita, I would
Yes.
say that if you are a very first year teacher, if you're using Exceed for the very first year, my guidance to you would be to avoid making any changes in the lesson plans in the first year. Yeah, once you are more experienced with the 5 step, you have understood the concepts very well. From the second year, I would definitely be very flexible with you to make those minor changes as per the 5 step. Uh, because if you see, the lesson plans are designed after a decade of research with a lot of proofreading and things that work in the classroom. So if you're a first year teacher, Nityashri, my guidance would be please follow the lesson plan to the T. In case you feel there is some modification required, please speak to your Exceed leader before making that change. Aprajita, what is your view on
No,
this?
no, absolutely, absolutely. And I think the more you experience with the lesson plan, you would know the usefulness why each step is given. Uh, yeah, I mean, I would go with that. You have a way better experience with the classroom, Mahesh, so I would.
One of the questions that we see, that students are very excited during the action part of the lesson, but some of them lose interest during the analysis. What are the strategies you would use to sustain the engagement?
Uh, I think one way to make the analysis more engaging is I would possibly share with them why the activity they did or whatever they're learning today is critical for their own for them like connect it with their own life, with their local something around their own, like let me give me an example. Examples always help. Suppose you are teaching them about environmental pollution. Let's say grade 3 or grade 4. It's a common topic which comes in science. And they've done an activity on, say, noise pollution, or they've done it something on water pollution. Yeah. In the activity, they just use some clean water, dirty water, maybe, and they did some metric, something they've done. And then the question comes about AD, GD, HOTS, and you may find that, oh my God, my children are losing interest. What you can do is connect this with their own life. That, okay, hang on. What if you imagine you open the tap today and you want to fill water, your home, your family is trying to fill water, and they see dirty water coming from the tap. What do you think will happen to you? Will you drink that water? So always helps to connect that learning with their own life, with their own region, with their own locality. It could be something about fruits they are learning, flowers they are learning, even mathematics, something about parallel lines. So show them one relevance in their own life, in their neighborhood, in their locality, so they can connect it with their immediate life. That will certainly trigger an interest for them to move ahead with the analysis questions. Once they see the relevance, once they see that, oh, this is really important for me, I can see the example around me, I can see something in my locality, neighborhood, something to connect to their own life. That will help.
Great. So, Prajita, maybe we'll take a couple more questions. These are a lot many questions flowing in. We may not be able to take all, but let's see. There
Yeah.
are some interesting ones. One of the question by Uttara, ma'am, is some children struggle to understand the question to be able to answer independently. How do you tackle that? So I think one of your slides spoke about, how can we do application very well in the classroom? And I'll repeat the point that Prajita made earlier, that before you start application, one of the first step that you should follow is allow children to read the question to the class as a whole. And if you're teaching a lower primary class, maybe you read the question to the children so that they understand. And in case during the check for understanding, you figure out that they're not understanding the question, that possibly break down the question for them to easily understand, and then give them the independent space to write independently. So if they are lower primary, you can do the application questions one by one. If these are higher primary, say grade 3, 4 onwards, you can discuss all the three questions. When I say discuss, not giving out the answers, but explaining the questions and then allowing them a space to write independently. One question that I see from Gargi, ma'am, is, sometimes learners ask too many questions that disturbs the flow of the class. What should we do? I am really happy, Gargi ma'am, to see this question. It also tells, how curious your class is and the culture your class has, that they are asking so many questions. We would all want to be in such a classroom, right? But yes, sometimes the questions are related to the learning outcome of the class. Sometimes the questions are not related to the learning outcome of the class, right? So any questions that are related to the learning outcome of the class, related to the activity, I would definitely want to answer, because the same questions other children might have in the classroom, right? But if I realize that the question is not related to today's aim or today's learning outcome, I would park it, yeah, and address the answer later, because the same question might be covered in the upcoming lesson, right? Because the blocks are tied up for the same topic. So questions which are related to the same aim, I would address it in the class. Questions which are not related to the learning outcome of the same class, I would park it and address the question later. But thank you for asking that interesting question. Great. Do we take one more question, Aprajita, or do we
Yeah.
move to our session 2?
And yeah, we could take one last question.
Great. One of the attendees asked, is it a good idea to assign prior reading of the lesson to save time?
Academically, if they read the content book chapter, that's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea. That's
Completely agree with
pre-reading is
you.
always useful. Yes. Like in English, we do have a lot of pre-reading strategies. So because the content book really doesn't give away what they're going to be doing in the class. The content book will kind of prepare them a little bit conceptually, but what they'll actually find out more in details is going in the classroom. So you could do that. It might also, enhance their reading comprehension skills better. You
Right.
could do that, yeah. But
So we'll take one more question, the last one, before we move to session 2. One of the attendees is asking, what if the child is able to answer question 3, but not question 1 or 2 in the workbook? How do I give remark on that for A and E? So I'll maybe answer the first half
yes,
of the
yes.
question. I think it is less likely that child may be able to answer question 3 and not question 1 and 2, but I'm not saying it's impossible. There may be instances, but I would want children to complete question number 1 and 2 as well. So my request would be that, maintain a good board work. During the analysis part, analysis has 3 parts: AD, GD, and HOTS. Ensure that the responses that children give are used in the board work, so that children are able to take support from that and attend all the 3 questions. Uh, Aprajita, would you like to share, what remark would you give if question number 1 and 2 is a
I think
blank?
I would go with what you first said. That is going to be highly unlikely that a child has not been able to answer question 1 and 2, because the way we design the questions 1, 2, and 3 in our worksheets are always in a conceptual progression. So the higher order thinking question is one step higher conceptually from the meeting aim, and the approaching question is one step lower than the aim. So it's going to be very unique and interesting. I would actually try to find out that, okay, why were you not able to answer question 1 and 2? So I would look into it more from an academic point of view, that where was the roadblock? Why, what kind of thing? Because the way questions are designed, we get into actually the pedagogy, and we frame it in a way that, say, I'll give you an example. So if you're teaching about triangles, first time triangle, so usually the pre-knowledge that children must have to learn about triangle is they should know about angles. Okay. And then maybe my higher order thinking could be a case where I'm forming a kind of a word problem or asking them to maybe draw a triangle. Yeah. The meeting aim was mostly about looking at the three angles of a triangle and measuring them and saying, is it a right angle triangle or not? And question one was actually measuring the three angles, separate angles. Now, if a child has been able to do question three and not question one and two, it's a very unique case because you need to know angles. Then only you'll be able to understand triangles. And once you understand triangles, then you are able to draw a triangle accurately, or maybe answer a word problem where we have given a triangle as a context. So cognitively, it seems rather unlikely, but we would like to get into it. Why?
Great. Thanks for sharing. There are a lot many questions on the chat box. I'm feeling guilty of not answering all of them, but I'm sure when the education coach visits, they will address many of your questions when they come to the school. One last question we will take before we moving on to the session 2 is, do we need to write aim for nursery classroom? I would say yes, but you don't have to copy the exact same aim that is there in your lesson plan. Write a very short aim which is understandable by children. It could be a word or a small phrase.
I know, Mahesh, there is one question which somebody is asking: how do teachers ensure that they work towards building critical thinking ability in the class? What sort of questions can they ask? So first and foremost, all our activities are actually aimed towards building critical thinking. So if you work on the activity, you get them children to do the activity, that's where the seed of critical thinking is sown. Now, coming to the second part, what sort of questions they can ask? Uh, Best way to ask critical thinking questions are questions which start with, why do you think so? How did it happen? Not what, where, and when. So if you follow the why and how, those actually include some critical thinking in them. So either you ask them the question or have children ask questions with, why do you think so? Why did it happen? How do you know? That's all from my end. It was a very tempting question, Mahesh. I could not resist not answering it.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, over to you, Mahesh.
Yeah, there is a technical question. I know I'm delaying my module 2, but there's a technical question which I think people should be clear about. How to use homework in the Exceed app. We are using in the class only, but how can parents have access to the homeworks that we give? Teachers, one thing that you will have to ensure that in the month of June is ensure that all the parents are registering on the parent app. Once the parents have registered on the parent app, they will be able to see the content that you share via app in the newsfeed and as the homework. Yeah. Uh, just like you got the super teacher code, there is a parent code provided to the school. Please ensure all your parents are registered on the parent app as well. Yeah. Once this is done, you will be able to share news from your classroom, homework, prerequisites for your class, any resources that you want parents to bring for the next class. You can share all this communication from your super teacher app itself. Thank you so much for asking that question. And with this, I think we should move to module 2 of the session today. So let me quickly share my screen. I hope it's visible, Aprajita.
Yes, it is.
Great. So session 2 today is more about preparing the lesson effectively using the Exceed Super Teacher lesson plans, which is there in your app. Yeah. And in this session, we are going to talk about logging into the Super Teacher web platform. We will explore different key features which are there in the lesson plan. We are also going to navigate lesson plans across different subjects. All of you already have the access to the Super Teacher. You will also be learning to prepare before the class for smooth lesson plan delivery. And like we had it right now, we will also have a small section where we will clarify your doubts through an interactive Q&A session where you can ask your questions. Yeah. So let's start. So before we continue, I want all of you to open your mobile phone, open the Super Teacher app. In case you're joining in from a laptop, you can also go to the web version. Select the grade and subject that you will be teaching very soon. Yeah. Select a grade subject, and open any block and any one lesson plan. Yeah, once you are ready with this, can I please have some thumbs up so that I know you have already opened your lesson plan? Okay, I can see a lot of thumbs up, so I understand people are ready with the lesson plan. Sona ma'am says, kindly repeat. What I want you to do is open your SuperTeacher app or the web version of the SuperTeacher. Open any grade and subject, possibly the ones that you are teaching, and open any one lesson plan. Yeah, I can see many thumb raised, so it means many of you are already ready with the lesson plan. Now, what I want you to do, I want you to find out the list of items in that lesson plan. This is especially important for teachers who are going to teach Exceed for the very first year, because these are important key features. I don't want you to miss out on them. Yeah. So the first thing that I want you to find out in the lesson plan is which part of the lesson plan has resource. Yeah. Where is resource located? Can you all search in the lesson plan? And once you find it out, you can type yes in the chat box. Yes, I have found it out. You can also type down where exactly is the resource mentioned. I can see a lot of aim. Some of you are saying it's right after the aim. It has a list of things that we will be using for the resources. Wonderful. One of the question in the chat is, where is the resource? That's the task for you right now. Please open your SuperTeacher app, find out in a lesson plan, where is the resource? Great. A lot of you are saying after the aim. That's correct. Let's explore the next key feature. Where is the keyword? Where is the keyword in the lesson plan? Keyword is after the resource. Wonderful. A lot of you are giving the correct answer. These are a list of important features of the SuperTeacher app. I would highly encourage all the teachers who are using Exceed for the first time. They have already gone into the classes or they're going to teach soon. Please find out these key features. We have already searched resources, keywords. Where do you find the board work in the lesson plan? Where is the board work? Let's type it in the chat box. Where is the board work? Okay, I see one person has given the response right now. Very nice. Yes, your messages are visible to me. There is a flow of messages coming, so I'm not ignoring any of them. I can see the messages. Yes, so it's right in the AD part. There are three parts in analysis: AD, activity discussion, generalized discussion, and higher order thinking skills. The sample board work is right there in the analysis discussion. Now let's figure out where are the discussion questions in the lesson plan. Where are the discussion questions? Where are the discussion questions? Very nice. Discussion questions are right after the action. The entire analysis part are the discussion questions. It has three parts to it. Thanks for sharing. Where are the teacher notes in the lesson plan? Let's explore the app and find out where is the teacher notes. Where are the teacher notes? Not the teacher tips, but the teacher notes. Where are teacher notes? Where are the teacher notes? Very nice. In the action part, in the analysis part, you will see a small section, a box where you can add your own notes. That's teacher notes. So any notes that you add, it's there in your app, right? So you can have your own notes along in the SuperTeacher. Jasmine ma'am is asking, can you help locate the board work? It's right in the analysis discussion, ma'am. So there is a small sample board work reflecting in the analysis summary. Next part, where do you find the differentiation tip in the lesson plan? Where do you find the differentiation tip? Who gets it right first? No, it's not in the application. Where do you find the differentiation tip? Okay, I see a lot of answers coming in. Where do you see the differentiation tip? Yes, a lot of you are coming. Shital ma'am is the first one to answer it correctly. It's right after the application part. Yeah. So while children are writing independently, teacher can use differentiation tip to support children who have already completed the worksheet and support children who also need some help with the worksheet. Where do we find the answer guide for the worksheet? Let's explore the lesson plan and tell me, where do you find the answer guide for the worksheet? Okay, Sona ma'am says check, but which part is check in? That's in assessment. So when you click on assessment, there is a part called check. When you click on check, you will be able to see the worksheet. It will also have an option to say show answer. Yeah, the worksheet flips and you will see model answers for teacher's reference. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Where do you see practice questions in the lesson plan? Where do you find practice questions in the lesson plan? The first one to answer again, Sheetal ma'am, very nice. It's in the homework section. Yeah, it's in the homework section. You see the practice question. If you're a new teacher about to use Exceed, please ensure you have all these key features. You are able to identify all these key features in the lesson plan. Where do you find the homework questions? Which part of the lesson plan can you click and see? Where do you find the homework? Where is the homework part located? Jyoti Verma says, right after the application. Exactly correct. The last one, but very important. Where do you find the assessment rubric for the lesson? Where do you find the assessment rubric? Right, Jyoti ma'am, you're correct. It's right after the assessment. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I hope you have explored all these key features of the Super Teacher. These are important elements of the Super Teacher lesson plan that will help you enhance the quality in the classroom. Yeah. Thank you so much for participating nicely and sharing a lot of responses in the chat box. Please ensure you're focusing on all these features. Okay. So as we move ahead, what I wanted to do now, since we have explored all the key features of the lesson plan, I want you to run through that lesson plan for 1 minute. Yeah. Run through that lesson plan. Imagine you have to teach this lesson plan tomorrow. What are you going to do to ensure that you are able to teach this lesson plan well? Yeah. I'm going to give you 1 minute. Let's run through the lesson plan that you have selected. So open any one lesson plan for any subject and grade that you will be teaching. Let's go through that lesson plan for 1 minute. How do you prepare to teach that? In the meantime, what we can also do is probably have some responses by people who want to share. So in case you want to unmute yourself and share, you can quickly raise your hand. And once you raise your hand, we will allow your mic to be unmuted and then you can unmute and share. So anyone who would like to share, I see Jyoti ma'am's hands raised. Jyoti ma'am, you are allowed to speak. So how would you plan for your lesson? You can unmute yourself and share. Yes, Jyoti ma'am. Anyone else? I see Vamshita ma'am also raising her hand. Vamshita ma'am, I have switched on the settings for your mic. You can unmute yourself and share. The question is, how do you plan for your lesson? Now that you have the lesson plan, you have seen the key features, how do you plan for your class? Yes, Vamshita ma'am.
Hello, sir. Good morning, sir. Can you
Very
hear
good
me?
morning. Yes, you're audible, ma'am. Please share.
So, first of all, we need to get ready with our lesson plan in a full-fledged manner,
Yes.
and we should get ready with the resources, whatever we require in the class,
Wonderful.
and time management even.
Yes.
We have to manage the time and
Yes.
what the homework should be given and what classwork should be given and where to play the video and where to stop the video. These all things.
So Vamshita ma'am is sharing a complete mental movie of how she would plan. Thank you so much for sharing, Vamshita ma'am.
Thank you.
Jyoti ma'am, how would you plan for your lesson when you have to teach? I see that you are unmuted, but I'm not able to hear you. Vamshita ma'am. Sorry, Jyoti ma'am. Okay, we have Ashu ma'am also who wants to speak. So Ashu ma'am and then Lavanya ma'am will take the turn. Ashu ma'am, you can unmute and share. How would you plan for your lesson?
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, Ashu ma'am.
Okay. Before starting any lesson, a teacher should be very much clear in her mind what is the aim that she's going to achieve today. So before going to my class, I just go through the lesson plan completely, go through the aim, basically what I'm going to teach them. All the resources should be ready. Keywords should be very much clear in my mind. What are the questions that I'm going to ask and how I'm going to assess them whether my aim is achieved or not.
Great. Thank you so much, Ashu ma'am, for sharing a clear, crisp view of how you would plan your lesson. We have Lavanya ma'am also who has raised her hand. Lavanya ma'am, whenever you can unmute yourself and share how do you plan your lesson?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Yeah, before explaining, we need to go through the lesson plan thoroughly. What is the aim and how are we going to teach and what is the approach? First, making the resources ready. If at all we need any kind of resources from the child, we need to message them or we need to ask them to get them in the previous class itself. Okay, and if anything has to be handy, we need to make the resources ready, like writing something on the paper immediately, because we need not go through the lesson plan many times. Of course, we will be sharing the lesson plan on the TV anyways with the students. I mean, not the lesson plan. I mean, whatever the student kind of thing which we are showing, but still going through the lesson plan once or twice thoroughly, then keeping the resources ready, then when assessment comes, whether our goal is reached or not, asking them some more questions. So these things I will do for thoroughly running the lesson plan.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing, Lavanya ma'am. It's really good to hear experienced voices share what helps them. So thank you for sharing. We'll have one more person share. Shweta ma'am has raised her hand. So Shweta ma'am, maybe you'd like to share. How would you plan for your class?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Sir, I would like to share that first I'll read the lesson plan thoroughly and then prepare all the necessary resources for that. Then I will visualize how to conduct the activities in the class. And I'll then decide on the strategies to switch from, since I'm in a pre-primary section, so we have 5 times in a day, 5
Yes.
portion of a plan. So we have to decide how to switch from one time to another time. Then I'll decide on the transaction routines also, how to move from one time to another, and how to pair up the kids for any of the pair or group activity. And I'll go through the worksheet also, all the questions of the worksheet beforehand.
Great. Thank you so much, Shweta ma'am, for sharing. It was really lovely to hear you and all of you who spoke. I think it was really happy to see, that a lot of you focused on going through the lesson plan very well, focusing on the aim, preparing in terms of resources that you may be needing, not only going through the lesson plan, but also opening the lesson plan and seeing the questions that children will have to answer. These are voices of teachers who have experienced lesson plan and who have seen success in the classroom, and they know what to focus on. So thank you for sharing these tips. So let's figure out, there are a lot many new teachers also attending today. So what will you have to do to ensure the lesson plan goes well? Let's do this step by step. First, what I want you to do, you have already read the lesson plan. I want you to visualize the lesson plan. Yeah. To visualize the lesson plan, first you'd read the full lesson and create a mental movie in your own mind. Yeah. How would you start the aim? Because you know your classroom better. How many children? How is the class setting? Whether you're writing the aim on the board or whether you're showcasing the aim on the screen. Yeah. How is your board work going to look like? How are you going to ask questions? Are you going to use ice cream sticks? Are you going to do cold calling? I think a mental movie helps you place the lesson plan in the mind before it actually happens inside the classroom. So let's take a minute. Let's visualize the lesson plan in our mind and read the full lesson and create a mental movie. Yeah, once you're ready, we will have a couple of you share a mental movie for your class to all the participants. Yeah, anyone who is ready can raise their hand to share. Yeah. It's very important to visualize before you enter. Aarti ma'am says, may I share? Aarti ma'am, you would be happy. I am unmuting you in case you want to talk about the flow of the lesson and how do you plan the mental movie. Yes, you're audible, ma'am. Aarti ma'am, we can hear you. Yeah. In case there are other participants who are ready with the mental movie and what are the steps you have taken to create that mental movie, it would be really great to hear some of you. So you can raise your hand, and once you raise your hand, we'll get your mic settings changed so you can unmute and share. Aarti ma'am, in the meantime, whenever you're ready, feel free to share. Vamshita ma'am is ready, so I'll unmute. Okay, Harshita ma'am. Yes, Harshita ma'am. So you can unmute yourself and speak.
Good morning, sir.
Very good morning.
Yes. So first thing is about the clear instructions we'll be giving before starting the activity. Because if the instructions are not clear, the class will turn into a chaotic place. So first thing is how the instruction should be given, and then like explaining the activity before handing the resources, and then handing over the resources, and also mention the time given for the activity, what is the time allotted, and moving around, observing what children are exactly doing, and yes, if some children, if they are not understanding, giving prompts, helping them, and then winding up, and then jumping into the activity discussion part.
Great. Thank you so much, Harshita ma'am. You sound like a very experienced teacher, and you mentioned step by step all the important points that a teacher should follow in the action, and I hope you also have a mental movie of what is the instruction you're giving, how is your eye movement, what are children doing. Thank you so much, for sharing that, Harshita ma'am. Are there other participants who would like to share? I can see some responses in the chat box. Okay, Shrilata ma'am has raised her hand. So Shrilata ma'am, whenever you're ready, you can unmute yourself and share.
Good morning, sir. Audible?
Yes, you're audible, ma'am.
Yeah, sir. Thank you, sir. Actually, that mental movie that is running behind when I'm going to take the class. First thing is that, of course, I'm ready with the resources. and that is very important. If the resources are not there with us, then we cannot able to control the students, and we cannot exceed a plan, right? And the next thing is that whenever I am going to start the action plan, first thing, very important thing is instructions, clear instructions. If the instructions are not clear, then it takes more time, right? And once the action part is done, whenever I'll go for analysis part, I mean AD, GD, and hot questions, sometimes we may not get the responses easily from the students, right? So in that moment, I'll ready with my backup questions also, so that I can save my time and I can complete the lesson plan within the prescribed time. Thank you, sir.
Really happy to hear that part from you, ma'am. Not only the AD questions, but also a follow-up questions in case children are struggling. Vamshita ma'am, would you like to share what's running behind your mind when you are
Yeah.
thinking of the mental movie?
So can you hear me, sir?
Yes, Vamshita ma'am, I can hear you.
So we have to mind map ourselves the 5 A's, sir. That is nothing but aim, action, analysis, application, and assessment part, sir.
Yes. Wonderful. It's very important to have all the 5 steps very clearly in the mind
Yeah.
and go through the classroom, step by step. Great. So thank you so much for sharing, all of you. No doubt having a strong mental movie with all the clearly defined 5 steps. And within the 5 steps, you need to be aware what are the instructions you're giving, how are you distributing the resources, how are the groups being made, what are the questions you are asking in analysis, what are the follow-up questions you may have to ask. It's really lovely to hear all those voices. Yeah. So after you have visualized your entire lesson plan in your mind, the next most important thing is ensuring that you are ready with the resources. Yeah. So can I request all of you to type in the chat box for the lesson plan that you have opened in front of you, or the ones that you were referring to? Can you type in the chat box what are the kind of resources which are required? So Jagdish sir, first one, content book and worksheet is required for my class. Okay, appropriate videos. What are the other resources? Flashcards for mathematics, a chart, content book and worksheet. Wonderful. Flashcards, picture cards, alphabet cards if it's a pre-primary classroom. Wonderful. Props, a puppet for kindergarten, real objects related to the lesson plan. Wonderful. Benedict's solution. Wonderful. So I really like the way you're responding. A lot of responses there. Wonderful. So once you have visualized the class, you have planned for your resources, the next thing you have to do is design how your board work may look like. One of the questions during the previous Q&A was, how should the board look like? What all things we should add? We highly recommend that aim should be there on the board, a simple, crisp aim, which is easier for students to understand. Keywords, and if possible with their meanings, and definitely a small section for action responses and a small section for responses that you get from the analysis. Yeah. Lastly, as Vamshita ma'am shared, that you should also have follow-up questions prepared. Yeah. So although the questions are scaffolded in the lesson plan as well as in the worksheets, please ensure that you may have to ask some follow-up questions. What would those follow-up questions should look like? Great. So thank you for participating in the planning bit. What we will do now, with respect to planning, we would like to hear some questions that you may have on top of mind. I can see a lot of you have typed in the chat box. Let's use the Q&A section in the chat box below your screen and ask any top of the mind questions you have with respect to planning the lessons effectively. Harshita ma'am says, can we change the activity? If you are a first year teacher, I would recommend no. But once you have some experience with the 5-step, you can definitely modify the activity slightly. The reason why I'm saying is because these lesson plans are designed after a lot of proofreading, after a lot of experience, and these have actually been implemented in the classroom multiple times. So you might actually not need to change the activity. But yeah, in case you are a first year teacher and you feel you need to slightly modify, please do discuss this with your coordinator. Yeah, thank you for asking that question, Harshita ma'am. Others who have top of the mind questions about planning, please use the Q&A. Great. So Jyoti ma'am says, can we split the keywords for grade 4 and 5 students? Jyoti ma'am, can you please elaborate your question? Jisha ma'am says, can we add extra keywords? Definitely, ma'am. If you feel there are certain keywords which your class might require, feel free to add those keywords from the lesson plan. So those are guided keywords, but if you feel couple of more keywords needs to be added, feel free to add. I will also invite Aprajita to help me with the Q&A section. So Aprajita, whenever you are there are some interesting questions which are coming in related to the planning.
Okay, I'm here.
Great. So Pooja ma'am says, can we change the language of the keywords? It depends on the subject you are teaching, ma'am. If it's an English class, we would definitely recommend no. Obviously, we cannot change the keyword language, but yeah, in case you want to explain the keywords and you feel the necessity to use the mother tongue in which the child understands, feel free to use it. It's very important for child to connect with the word so that he can grasp it and absorb it.
Yeah, that's a very useful point, Mahesh,
Yes.
that you can use regional terms to connect. More important is child should understand, but not encouraged in English classes.
Yes. One of the questions that I can see from Aarti ma'am is sometimes some lesson plans which has long reading take 2 periods. So how do I finish this in 1 period? So Aarti ma'am, whenever my suggestion would be that, whenever you see long stories, there may be some long stories. Although the lesson plans are modified to ensure lesson plans complete within the 1 period time, I would suggest giving pre-read for the children. Yeah, this was also one of the suggestion asked in the previous Q&A. You can give that lesson plan as a pre-read so the students are already ready with the reading and it can be done quickly in the classroom. Jiva ma'am asks, can we simplify the question that is given under GD, AD and HOTS? 100% Jiva ma'am, you don't have to think about it. The idea is, the reason why we do analysis is to ensure that child connects with the lesson plan and also is able to practice it in the application book. So you can definitely simplify the questions so that children can understand and you can get all the responses that you are expecting from the children. Sureka ma'am is asking a question there, Aprajita, which I'm not clear about. Maybe you can help me. We want some clarity about question and answer in each block. So Sureka ma'am, are you talking about the in-class practice or are you talking about the homework? If you can throw some more light on that. Can we draw diagrams on board as a science teacher? What is your say, Aprajita?
Yeah, sure.
We should definitely.
Yeah, you can draw or you can, to engage the child more, you can ask them to come and draw. Ask one of them to draw like little bit and the other student to come and complete it maybe. Or you can also do one thing, you can also draw a diagram, induce 1 or 2 errors and ask the child to pick those errors in the diagram.
Yeah. Shrit Hebi ma'am is asking, can we change the individual activity into a group activity?
So it depends from topic to topic. If it's in English, there you may find some individual activities that's given for a purpose, because children are probably supposed to write their own narrative about an experience or something. So then peer activity or group work may not be very useful. They might get distracted, they might use each other's ideas. So if it's a very creative writing task and individual activities encouraged, then let it be an individual activity.
Great. Ananya ma'am is asking, apart from completing the lesson plan, can we give some additional information or tasks to make the class more interesting? So Ananya ma'am, we do not discourage that, but we would also say ensure the entire lesson plan is complete, the learning outcome is met, and then you can definitely add some more information. The worry is that in the interest of adding more information, we should not be deviating from the lesson plan or diluting the lesson plan. But yes, if the children have achieved the learning outcome, you can definitely add more interesting stuff in your lesson. We would encourage that. Surekha ma'am has clarified her question. It's the class workbook.
Okay.
But I don't think I'm still clear. So Surekha ma'am, we are going to cover the parts of book, what we do inside the classroom, what we do as homework. We will cover that in the section 3, module 3 of the session. So, but yeah, I can see your question, but we will explain it in the next module.
Yeah, or maybe when we show, I think if ma'am wants to know about whether we are giving the answers to the question, yes, we do give the answers to classwork question, homework question. These are all available in the Super Teacher app, only for the teacher to view. So if you click on the assessment section for the homework, you click on that link and you will be able to see the sample homework question, and you will be able to find the answer. It will say shows answer. For the classwork questions, these are in the additional practice question, I think day 5 or day 6, depending on the. There also we give the answers to all the questions on the Super Teacher app itself, if that was also one of your queries.
Right. One of the question is, for the nursery class, can we use bilingual language in the classroom? So my recommendation is when the children is entering the class, maybe in the month of June, July, August, you can use some bilingual language for understanding of the children, but I think gradually we should decrease. Yeah, because the English environment the child will receive is only probably in the class. He may not be talking in English with their friends at home. So if he has to understand English better and speak better, then the exposure for language needs to increase in the school environment, right? So my recommendation is okay to start with bilingual, but gradually you have to consciously decide to fade away the mother tongue and move to English, more of English. Do you see any other interesting questions, Aprajita?
Yeah, I'm also looking. Uh, the in-class practice questions have to be done only after the. No, it's not after all the blocks, ma'am. Mahesh, there's a question here on the chat actually. I think it's asking about the in-class practice question, which are the additional practice. That's
Yeah.
not to be done after 4 blocks. That's to be done after the end of each block. We have
Yes,
the
yes,
last
yes.
lesson, right? Which
Yes,
is,
I
I
think
think
ma'am
Bhujanji
mistakenly
teacher
shared
means
block.
the
She probably
revision.
meant lesson plans. Yes.
Okay, yeah, after the 4 lesson plans. And after every 5 blocks, we do have a revision block where we have put the questions on the app for the previous blocks where you can do some revision.
Yeah. Nitya ma'am says there are less activities in English. What do we do? So Nitya ma'am, different subjects have different activities. In language, a lot of activities are about listening, reading, sharing with their group partners. So there are activities. Obviously, you may not be using a lot of manipulatives or resources because in language, there are a lot of text, poems, there are different genres of text, listening skills. So those are the actions that children will be doing. So you may not need a lot of manipulatives, but yes, there are a lot of action happening. So you may be reading aloud, children may be listening to each other. That's a part of the activity. So we'll take one or two more questions, Aprajita, before moving on to the next session, since you're all
Yes.
running out of time. Sheetal ma'am is asking, regarding the grammar guide question, one LP on grammar topic with worksheet and one LP is there in the grammar guide. Can we try to complete it in one class, or how do we go about it? Needs tips to handle that.
See, for English, we have given a grammar lesson separately, including a vocabulary lesson. That's because the subject demands it. So if you try to combine the grammar guide lesson and the actual grammar lesson together, it might be a lot for the child to grasp. So it needs some more scaffolding, because grammar is all about rules and norms. So I'm not sure how much kids will really learn if you combine the two together. Grammar is all about practice, which is why we've given the extra grammar lesson.
I agree to you, Aprajita. I think both the lesson plan should be separately done because we're not really sure how many questions, because you may have a 30-minute period or a 35-minute period. My recommendation is, I can understand where you're coming from. My recommendation would be to request your coordinator if they can arrange one extra period every week so that you are able to manage time well and able to justify both the lesson plans equally. Deepti ma'am says, is there any plan needed for nursery? I mean, lesson plan? Definitely, ma'am. Structured lesson plans helps you keeps the lesson plan structured. The lesson plans are designed in a way that all the important skills that children should learn are covered. So we would definitely recommend following a plan. What is yours, Aprajita?
I think very important for nursery is to get into a routine of a classroom. And from pedagogic point of view, early program, the pedagogy is all about repetition. They learn more when there is a lot more repetition. So having a structured lesson plans, because the way we've designed it, it encompasses all the main core domains. So that's very important. Secondly, if you want to map it with different standards, whether international or even with Indian, Filipino, Matatag, or the NCF, everywhere they're talking about a holistic education for early program. Now, if you do not have a structured lesson plan, you may not know the holisticness of what you're dealing with every day, whether you are actually meeting the objective of a holistic lesson every day. But in Super Teacher, we have made the lesson plan so it takes care of all the core domains, the physical and the cognitive, the aesthetic, cultural. So we have English, math, science, we have reading time, we have circle time, which is about interpersonal, we have art time, we have play time. So I would strongly recommend, because the early program is pretty robust, it matches very well with the expectations of NCF and other international standards. So it is very necessary. And children, from a children's point of view, they need to get into a routine to understand there is a structure and way things are done.
Got it. We'll take two or three more questions quickly, Aprajita. So one of the question is, if I have 2 periods in a day, can I take 2 classes or 2 lesson plans? So I would say the short answer should be yes. Yeah, if you have 2 periods in a day, you can definitely take 2 separate lesson plans in 2 separate periods. Yeah. One of the question is, can we add more activities within the same lesson plan? It's nursery class. So I would definitely say yes. I would say complete the lesson plan and add activities if you want related to the learning outcome of the lesson plan. It's very important to ensure that we stick to the aim of the class and not deviate from it. Otherwise, it dilutes the learning. So add activities related to the topic that will help them.
Yeah, maybe we could move ahead, no?
Yeah. I think we'll just take one last question. How to manage the classroom if there are no provision of the smart class? Can you suggest any way of executing effectively? I think Uma ma'am, we just now discussed how mental movie can be planned. I think within your mental movie and your lesson notes, if you're preparing, you should ensure that you're writing the stepwise instruction that you're giving, the follow-up question you're asking, how are you making the groups? And I think these strategies within your lesson plan is going to help you manage the class effectively. Many of our classrooms do not have smartboard. They run solely with the super teacher on teacher's phone. So it is possible. Yeah. So great. I think Aprajita, we will move on to the last session
Yes.
to complete the session on time. Great. So let me share my screen.
That
Aprajita.
was a very interesting session, Mahesh. And the responses, especially from classroom point of view, was so useful.
True. Great. So moving on to the last session, and it's very important session. How do I use the book pack effectively in my class? And in this session, we are going to uncover critical concepts which are there in the content book, both in class and at home. There was also a question related to that. We will also understand how to solve problem daily in the workbook, how to excel in English with the grammar guide and the word workbooks that we have for language, how to write something more, the writing practice books for early program. And we will also talk about how to assess young learners' skills with the NEP aligned holistic progress report card. Yeah. Great. So what do you feel the Exceed book pack has? Do you think it's only content book and workbook, or there is something more? Can you quickly type in the chat box? Do you think it's only about content book and workbook, or there is something more? Harshita ma'am has already added. Madhuri ma'am says, yes, there is a lot more. Shweta ma'am says, for pre-primary, there is a lot more. Yeah, there are more things. You're mentioning a lot of these things. Wonderful. Okay, so you can see a lot of different components of the Exceed book pack on your screen. What I want you to do is categorize them into different parts. Try to categorize them at least in 3 different parts. Yeah. So let's see who gets it first. What I want you to do, you see different components of the Exceed book pack. How can you sort this out into at least 3 different ways, maybe? Try to sort this out into 3 different books. Okay, the first answer came from Madhuri ma'am. There is content book, workbook, and practice book. Okay. Harshita ma'am says there is something for reading. There is something for writing. It's subject-wise. There is something for grammar. Jyoti ma'am says there are workbooks. Try to categorize into 3 different ways. Nishi ma'am says content book, workbook, practice book. Okay. Shweta ma'am says there's content book, workbook, practice book, drawing book. Shweta ma'am, 3 different ways, not 5 different ways. You have mentioned 5 separate ones. Okay, so lot many responses there. Let's explore. Yeah. So we have 3 volumes of content book and 3 volumes of workbook for English, math, science, and social science across grade 1 to 8. Yeah, I'll repeat. We have 3 content book and 3 workbooks for English, math, science, and social science from grade 1 to 8. Over and above, we also have a grammar guide and a word work for English. Yeah, that's for grade 1 to 8. For early program has a Young Explorer. It is interdisciplinary content book, which has 3 volumes. There is Student Reader, which is for the reading on day 5 of the block. And there are 2 volumes for that. So 3 volumes of content book, 2 volumes of Student Reader. There is one scrapbook. There is one report card, which is the holistic report card. And there are 3 application workbooks. Every day, early program children do 1 worksheet a day. Alongside, we also have a writing practice book for early program. And each block has 2 worksheets for in-class practice and 2 worksheets as home practice in the writing practice book. Yeah. So let's uncover the content book. So we saw different kind of books that are available in the book pack. Let's uncover the content book. and what all components are there in the content book. So for in class, what can we do in class with the content book? In class, we use it to read different case studies, different examples related to the topic. We also use it to go through the infographics and different diagrams. We also use content book in class to write one-word questions which are there. Yeah. We also use content book in class for glossary. It has meanings of important words that are covered in the lesson plan. Yeah, these are the ways we use practice book, content book in the classroom. Now, one more, we also use content book. How can I forget this? Yeah, it's most interesting part of the block. We also use My Learning Chart, which is at the end of the block, for child to summarize the learning from the entire block. So there are different ways we can use the content book in class. When it comes to after class, how do we use the content book? So there are project work which children can explore at home. There are practice questions which can be given as homework. And there is also homework which children can refer back when they are at home. So there are different ways content book can be used in the classroom, as you can see on the screen. Yeah, let's come to workbook. How do I use the workbook in my classroom? We use it for independent writing. Teachers can also offer prompts that helps support children to think. We also have differentiation tips in the lesson plan that will help you complete the worksheet properly. For worksheet completion, you can also provide sentence starters. If the children are young and they are struggling to write, you can also provide sentence starters. You can have a word bank on the board which children can use to write their answers independently in the workbook. Yeah. Alongside, workbook also has a rubric, as you can see on the screen. It's a structured rubric to identify what the child is able to do. Yeah. So we also have a rubric to identify what the child is able to do and what he needs to do. Great. So we have gone through the content book and we've also gone through the workbook. Let's talk a little bit more about the book pack for the early program, especially with respect to writing. So there are daily writing activities in the lesson plans. Children write during the lesson as well as after the lesson. There are daily worksheets. Every day there is one worksheet that the child has to do in the classroom. There are 2 writing practice sheets per week, 2 that go as a homework, 2 that the child has to do in the class. Yeah. There is also student reader. Some student reader also have a story completion sheet, as you can see on the screen. So there are different ways children write in the early program. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about the holistic progress report card for the early program. As you can see on the screen, a holistic progress report card has also been modified as per the recent requirement. It is completely aligned with the NCF. It follows the National Curriculum Framework standards to match it. You can comprehensively track the progress across all the developmental domains of the child. Yeah. The progress report card can be used twice. It is biannual in nature. So after first term and second term, you can track the progress. There are detailed competency-based assessment. So it focuses more on teachers' observation inside the classroom of what the child is able to do and report key skills that the child has gained in the progress report card. So not only teacher can add their observations in the progress report card, it is very inclusive. It takes insights from different stakeholders who are a part of the child's development in the early years, right? Great. So that was more about the book pack. We still have 10 minutes to go. We would like to open it up for question and answer with respect to the book pack. We have gone through the components of the book pack. We saw how content book, workbook, the writing practice book, and the holistic report card can be used wisely during our year. So opening it up for question and answer, I would also invite Aprajita to come up again to help address some of the questions that participants may ask. Great. So anything with respect to content book, any top of the mind thoughts or questions? So Aarti ma'am has asked a question in the chat box, can we give My Learning Chart as a homework, or do we have to do in the class? Yeah, so I think we are flexible in how you want to do it, but your school may have a policy whether you want to do it in school or you want to give it as a homework. So I would suggest you please speak to the Exceed leader, and depending on what the school policy allows, we can be flexible with that. So Exceed doesn't mandate it to be done in the classroom itself, but some schools may want it to be happening in the classroom. So please do take inputs from your Exceed leader.
One says, please provide space for content book PQs. Maybe can I answer that?
Yes, please, Aprajita.
So, ma'am, if there are, we have a few types of questions. One type is fill in the blank, one is multiple choice, one could be match the following, others could be true and false. Then we have the third category, which is more about subjective answers, slightly long answer, slightly short answer. Now, if you want children to answer the MCQ, where they just have to tick or write true and false or draw matching lines, they can do it in the content book itself. There is no need for space. But the short objective questions, subjective questions are supposed to be done in their notebook. It gives them writing practice. So I think that's what I wanted to share.
Great. I think there is one other interesting question, Aprajita, and I think you should answer this. Sir, can you please explain about novel for the higher grade in grade 6, 7, 8? How do I use it in the classroom? Seema ma'am's question.
Yeah, so we do have the novel lessons, which are ideally towards the end of the blocks for grades, the higher grades. So what you can do is, here I think I'll use the strategy Mahesh said, because it's a longish novel. You can't do everything in class. So I would suggest giving pre-reading chunks of it, pre-reading. And because it's a novel, it's an interesting story. And children will be able to read. You give them, like, you can actually plan it even a week in advance. It's like a bedtime story. Just ask them to read about 1 or 2 pages every day till they actually come to the block. So it needs a little bit of a planning, as I understand. That will also keep them interested. So when they'll be ready also, and make it like a pre-reading, but give them at least 1 week in advance. Say that your bedtime story book will be this now, and read 1 or 2 chapters. You don't really have to ask them questions on that, but to know that they're reading it, maybe before you start your class every day, even though it's a different block, you can ask them something interesting they read about that novel. Don't give them any explanation, any answer. So that way you will be able to keep a track whether they're actually reading it and if they're getting something out of it. That's it. It's just about knowing the story, just the facts about the story.
Great. Deepika ma'am, for your question, we need a demo class based on LKG and UKG. So June and July are the months of demo visit by education coach. So Deepika ma'am, if you are the Exceed leader or if you know the Exceed leader of your school, please reach out to them. They will get in touch with the Exceed education coach and schedule a demo visit in the school itself. So we will have a demo with your kids. Please get in touch with the education coach or ask the leader in the school to get in touch with the education coach. Yes, Aprajita, you had a point to add?
No, there is one question which has, no, not in this. Another question. It says questions are too big. It takes time for students to copy the questions and write the answers. So students are not needed to copy the questions, ma'am. They just have to write the question number in their notebook and they answer. They don't have to copy the questions.
Yeah.
Is the content in the textbooks available on the app? Yes, we do have uploaded the PDFs of the content books in the app.
And I think sir's question is, can we also use it in our smart classes? Definitely, sir. You can definitely use it. Just avoid showing the answer guides to the children. You can definitely use the content. You can definitely use the workbook to showcase, to read questions, to read the text. definitely you can use it.
Yeah, if there are fill in the blanks, match the following true, false, they don't have to write it in their notebook. If you want them, they can also answer it in the content book as well. But definitely encourage them writing the short answer, subjective questions in their notebooks.
Yeah. I think Prema ma'am's questions is interesting, and I think that will be relevant to all the teachers who are teaching grade 7, 6, 7, and 8. Is the novel linked to the concept or the lesson plans?
Yes, it is. That's why a little bit of pre-reading, give them in chunks. That, one we are going to be studying, give them in chunks. Then when it comes to the actual lesson plan, they'll be better prepared. And that's a very good question you asked about how to prepare students for the novels.
Right. One question by Shweta ma'am. In nursery and LKG, can we initially show content on the Young Explorer on TV? Because children take a lot of time to open the book and turn the pages. So, Shweta ma'am, my take on this would be, it's important for children to learn how to open the book, and the earlier they learn, the better. So, I know initially teaching them can be a little bit time consuming, but I think once they learn it, they will gradually save a lot of your time in future. Aprajita, any take on your side?
No. I completely align with what you said. I'm only looking at one question which says, are the answers available in the Super Teacher app, or do we have separate answer booklet as such? Ma'am, sir, we don't really need a separate booklet. All the answers for the worksheet, for the content book, everything is there on the Super Teacher app. Mahesh, if you want me, can I just show them where the answers are available?
Yes.
Quickly,
Great. So, great. Thank you for asking that question. We are also running short of time, so maybe we'll take 1 or 2 questions
yeah.
max.
Meanwhile, I'll just show because we got, I think, 2 of them. Where are the answers? So I'm just sharing with you where the answers are actually found. 1 second. So I'm opening a sample lesson. It doesn't matter, and this is the standard for all. So I hope you're able to see my screen. See, this is the worksheet question. The answers are already given here. Show answer. The answers are already given on the digital app. I'm sitting in a place with very low internet. Yeah, okay. So it might take, but here is the answer. So likewise for homework also, when you see the practice question, you click on show answer, it will show you the answer. So all the answers are actually available on the Super Teacher app. Likewise for all the classroom questions also, everything is available on the app, Lesson Plan 5. Here, the classroom questions. If you click on these, if you view the question, we have a teacher tip here. And we have the answer also here, show the answer. So that's all I wanted to show, Mahesh. Over to you.
Maybe, to Carlota's question, can you also show teachers how the entire lesson plan can be turned into a screen, into a presentation mode?
Oh, yes.
The view?
Yes.
You do not have to create anything new. The lesson
No.
plan can be converted into a student view that students can see very relevant videos.
So this is the standard view, everyone. This is what all teachers will be able to see with all the teacher tape. Somebody also asked, where is the differentiation tip? I think you found it in Mahesh's session. But if you want to run the class, you click, can you see my cursor? Top right corner, there is a icon says projector. Click on projector, and this is the projector view. And you can click on this forward button to move ahead. This is what children will keep seeing all the time. So just give me a second. Yeah. Click on this forward key, and this is how you will be able to use this. You can also use the audio feature. We have an audio feature, but anyway, this is the projector view. Now you want to exit the projector view. There's a cross exit at the bottom. Click on that and you come back to your original view. Yeah. This is a teacher view. projector view is top right corner. There's a small icon with the word projector. Should I stop share, Mahesh?
Yes, you can. I think a couple of them are mentioning that they are not able to see the screen, but I think the screen was visible.
Acha.
Okay, great. I think it's also time. We would like to thank all the participants for staying us this long and keeping the energy high. It was really lovely to see engaging interactions, a lot of responses in the chat box. You guys have been lovely participants, lovely super teachers in a way. So thank you so much. We once again thank you for joining us and looking forward to have you for our upcoming session as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.